For many nations, there is simply no other way left. Nations can speak about their pain from stages like this, but even during bloodshed, there isn't a single international institution that can truly stop it. That's how weak these institutions have become. What can Sudan or Somalia or Palestine or any other people living through war really expect from the UN or the global system? For decades, just statements and statements. And even everything happening in Gaza remains without a way out. Even now, Syria, after all the changes, still has to appeal to the world to ease the sanctions that are choking its economy. It has to ask and wait. Syria deserves stronger support from the international community. And as Russia's war against my country goes on, people are still dying every week. Yet there is no ceasefire because Russia refuses. Russia abducted thousands of Ukrainian children, and we have brought some of them back. And I thank everyone who's helped. But how long will it take to bring all of them home? Childhood slips away faster than adults are able to help.
They embody centuries of experience of the coexistence of states and remain fully relevant in the age of multipolarity. The only thing that remains is for all member states, without exception, to adhere to those principles in full, in their entirety, and as they are interconnected. In practice, however, things look different. Widespread, gross violations of the principle of the sovereign equality of states are undermining faith in justice itself and leading to crises and conflicts. The root of the problem lies in the incessant attempts to divide the world into us and them, into democracy and autocracy, into a blooming garden and a jungle, those who are at the table and those who are on the menu, into the chosen ones who are allowed everything and the rest who for some reason are obliged to serve the interests of the golden billion.
We are now building a new security architecture for ourselves. More than 30 countries are already part of our coalition, and we are strengthening army, launching joint weapons production with partners, and defining financial commitments for defense in a way that could become a security model for any other nation. If security guarantees work for Ukraine, something more than just friends and weapons, it will mean that people were able to make national security not a privilege for a few nations, but a right for everyone. Second, we are ready to make our modern weapons become your modern security, your modern weapon. And we have decided to open up arms exports. And these are powerful systems tested in a real war when every international institution failed. And we are also ready to grow our defense production together with strong partners so that their protection is modern and reliable.
Europe remains silent on this issue, obsessed as it is with the utopian goal of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia. To this end, the Ukrainian regime is permitted to do anything, including terrorist attacks against politicians and journalists, torture, extrajudicial executions, indiscriminate bombings of civilian targets, and reckless sabotage of nuclear power plants. As President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly emphasized, Russia has been and remains open to negotiations on eliminating the root causes of the conflict. Russia's security and its vital interests must be reliably guaranteed.
Last year at this assembly, I warned the world about the risk of radiation disasters, especially due to Russia's occupations of our Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the biggest in Europe, but nothing's changed. Nothing's. And yesterday, the plant went into blackout again, and Russia hasn't stopped shelling even in areas near a nuclear facility.
The strikes on Iranian facilities under IAEA safeguards deserve condemnation, as do the strikes on the capital of Qatar at a time when negotiations with Hamas were being held there with the participation of American mediators, among others. Yesterday, in the Security Council, the West rejected a rational proposal by China and Russia to extend the 2015 agreement on Iran's nuclear program in order to allow time for diplomacy. This has finally exposed the West's policy of sabotaging the pursuit of constructive solutions in the UN Security Council and its desire to extract unilateral concessions from Tehran through blackmail and pressure.
It's terrible, but without it, things would be even worse. There are no security guarantees except France and weapons. No Ukrainian choice this kind of reality. And knowing our people, they would have chosen a different priority. Ukrainians are peaceful people, but they are people who want to live freely in their own independent country.
In both cases, the principle enshrined in the 1776 Declaration of Independence and subsequently reaffirmed by many American presidents was put into practice. The following principle: governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. Neither the colonizers nor the Kiev regime had any consent from the peoples that they sought to rule.
You don't need to start this race from scratch. We're ready to share what has already proven itself in real defense. And third, many in the world are still relaxed. Still. But look at how many countries are here at this General Assembly, countries that are at war or just came out of war or are trying to stop one, or openly getting ready for one.
So far, neither Kiev nor its European sponsors seem to realize the gravity of the situation or to be willing to negotiate honestly. The North Atlantic Alliance continues to expand right up to our borders, contrary to assurances given to Soviet leaders to advance not a single inch to the east. Contrary to the commitments made by NATO members at the OSCE to respect the principles of the indivisibility of security and not to strengthen their own security at the expense of others and not to strive for dominance, we repeatedly propose that NATO capitals respect their commitments and agree on legally binding security guarantees.
War has already reached too many people to pretend it has nothing to do with you. So it depends on you. Whether you help peace or continue trading with Russia and helping Russia to fund this war, it depends on you. Whether prisoners of war will be freed, whether abducted children will come home, whether hostages will be free, it depends on you. What will define existence? War like now, or our joint strong actions as it should be? Yesterday we had a good meeting with President Trump, and I also spoke with many other strong leaders, and together we can change a lot. Of course, we are doing everything to make sure Europe truly helps. And of course, we count on the United States. I appreciate the support we are receiving. Yes, much depends on the G7 and G20, but in the end, peace depends on all of us, on the United Nations. So don't stay silent while Russia keeps dragging this war on. Please speak out and condemn it. Please join us in defending life and international law and order. People are waiting for action.
As President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly emphasized, Russia has been and remains open to negotiations on eliminating the root causes of the conflict. Russia's security and its vital interests must be reliably guaranteed. The rights of Russians and Russian-speaking people in the territories that remain under the control of the Kiev regime must be restored in full. On this basis, we are ready to discuss security guarantees for Ukraine.
We must not forget about protecting the rights of people and the rights of nations in regions where these rights are under threat. The UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights must apply everywhere. But the Taliban in Afghanistan dragged a whole country back into the dark ages. Cartels in some Latin America countries are more powerful than the government there. This is all about collapse of international law and the weakness of the international institutions. And so it's about the rise of weapons. Weapons decide who survives.
Russia is not agitating for revolution against anyone. Our country has suffered more than others from revolutions. We are simply calling on member states and the Secretariat's leadership to strictly adhere to all of the principles of the UN Charter without exception, without double standards. Only then will the legacy of the founding fathers of the UN not be squandered in vain.
Not much before drones are fighting drones, attacking critical infrastructure and targeting people, all by themselves, fully autonomous and no human involved, except the few who control AI systems. Dear leaders, we are now living through the most destructive arms race in human history, because this time includes artificial intelligence. And if there are no real security guarantees except friends and weapons, and if the world can't respond even to old threats, and if there is no strong platform for international security, will there be any place left on Earth that's still safe for people? We need global rules now for how AI can be used in weapons, and this is just as urgent as preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. We need to restore international cooperation, real working cooperation for peace and for security. A few years from now might already be too late. 10 years ago, war looked different, and no one imagined that cheap drones could create dead zones, areas stretching for dozens of kilometers where nothing moves, no vehicles, no life. People used to imagine that only after a nuclear strike. Now it's drawn reality. Mass-produced, simple drones, and without AI yet. Ukraine doesn't have the big fat missiles dictators love to show off in parades, but we do have drones that can fly up to 2,000-3,000 kilometers. We had no choice but to build them.
Moreover, threats of the use of force against Russia are increasingly being made. Russia is being accused of almost planning to attack the North Atlantic Alliance and the European Union countries. President Putin has repeatedly debunked these provocations. Russia has never had and does not have any such intentions. However, any aggression against my country will be met with a decisive response. There should be no doubt about this among those in NATO and the EU who not only are telling their voters that war with Russia is inevitable and are forcing them to tighten their belts, but are also openly talking about preparations for an attack on our Kaliningrad Oblast and other Russian territories.
Moldova is defending itself, again, from Russia's interference. We are helping Moldova, and Russia's trying to do to Moldova what Iran once did to Lebanon. And the global response, again, not enough. We have already lost Georgia in Europe. Human rights and the European nature of the state system are only shrinking there. Georgia is dependent on Russia. And for many, many years, Belarus has also been moving toward dependence on Russia. Europe cannot afford to lose Moldova too. It's important to remember how the world once ignored the need to help Georgia after Russia's attack, and how the moment was missed with Belarus. How Moldova must not be lost. And for Europe, supporting Moldova's stability is not costly, but failing to do so will come at a much higher price. That's why the EU needs to help Moldova now with funding and energy support, not just words or political gestures.
Now, the West has set a course for the collapse of the statehood of Bosnia and Herzegovina by sabotaging the Dayton peace agreement. In both Kosovo and Bosnia, an attack has been launched on the vital interests of the Serbian people, including the ancestral rights of Serbian Orthodoxy. Similarly, the Kiev regime, which seized power as a result of an anti-constitutional coup organized by the West in 2014, has set a course for the elimination of the canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church and the legislative eradication of the Russian language in all spheres, in education, culture, and the media. Ukraine is the only country in the world that has legislatively banned the use of the native language of almost half of its population. Arabic is not banned in Israel, and Hebrew is not banned in Arab countries and Iran, but Russian is banned in Ukraine.